Welcome to the Play at 3 podcast. I'm your host, Tisha Poncio, and as always, I'm here with my co-host, Rick. Hello, Rick.
Hey.
What's going on?
You know, we always go into everything that with the beginning of this. I remember one day you told me to stop saying "How are you" on the podcast.
I did, which is why I said, "What's going on?" I said, "What's going on?" Not "How are you?" I'm assuming you're great. And if you're not good and you're listening and you're not good, you might be good after this podcast. I hope you are. So, Rick, we have been doing this podcast for some time now, consistently.
We have, yes.
Every week since May. I believe we have how many episodes now?
Near enough every single week. I think we have 2 weeks out of 29 where we have not released an episode.
So this will be 30?
For reasons. This is week 30 of when we started. This will be episode
like
29.
Okay.
Yes,
well, that's really
29.
Exciting. And
this will be week. Yeah,
I love that we have so many. You don't even know.
It's more the confusion of when this episode will go out in relation to when we started. When we're recording this, it will be week 29.
Yeah,
but it will probably be week 31 when this goes out.
Well,
basically, in a nutshell, we're over 6 months. Over 6 months.
It's actually really cool. And this is truly one of the most favorite and fun things that I do. Honestly, it is my favorite hobby, if you will, if you can call this a hobby. I wrote a quote down in my morning pages journal with my brand new little what is this? I'm trying to. I've now forgotten what this is called. It's a fountain pen, and I love it so much. Makes everything feel fancy.
Did you ever have, when you were at school? Did you have to use fountain pens, or was it pencils?
We'd use
biros.
We would use pencils and ballpoint pens. So like blue, black, or red, because we would grade things.
Blue, black,
the red was to grade. No, the red was to, if we were grading each other's papers in class, which is something that we did as a student. Did you ever do that?
No.
It's like, get out your red pen and pass your paper back to the person behind you or in front of you or to the right or to the left of you. You never did that.
No, we never did peer grading. We did peer reviewing.
Yes,
but never grading.
That's a practice of the 80s, 90s education system. Yeah. Listen, this is not what we're here for today, but I want to read this quote to you.
I just wanted to say that the reason why I asked you what writing tools did you use? We had, when I was in grade, would have been grade 4 for you, or year 4. We had to start using fountain pens.
You know what? I wish I had grown up in the UK as a child. I know that sounds crazy, but I think I would have loved it there. I would have thrived. I would have thrived in a classroom that forced me to use a fountain pen. Makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were only allowed to use blue or black ink, but it was just always horrible because you ended up with, every day at school, you'd always end up with blue or black ink all over your hand.
Yes, actually, you can't see it, but I do have some black ink because I just ordered some refills for this, and it's in blue. It's actually called blue black, and so it is a mix of the colors, and I'm really just enjoying it. But I did want to share this with you. So really, to celebrate that we've been doing this podcast so long, I saw a quote the other day. And it said, "Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be fun." Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be fun.
Yeah.
And I think that this podcast is such a great example of the fact that we are not perfect. And our episodes are not perfect. But we are showing up every week, and we are having fun. And we are talking to people and having conversations with people and giving people the ability to share their passions and their insight and their knowledge. And it is my favorite. This is my favorite hobby. I love it so much. So
it is good fun. I think the difference is we've got you and I both working on something that we're actually really passionate about, and creating and spreading the message, not just of our own, but also having other people on to also spread their message, and which will hopefully help other people And that's always been our goal, our values of this podcast, hasn't it? Since we started it. And I remember the day when we started it, we were like, okay, let's get past 7, let's get to 10. And then we kind of forgot about what our next goal was.
Well,
and
don't you think that's what's cool about goals, is that when you're really having fun and you're not worrying about the, dare I say, the KPIs, the income, the money, the slide decks, the meetings, you are able to achieve so much because you've forgotten about that and you're having fun. I just really think there's something to that. And so a lot of people will tell me, I've talked about this before, but they will say to me, so you're doing a podcast in your free time, and you literally have no free time. And it's really always positioned that this podcast is work. And I always say, when you love something and you're having fun, it will not be work. And so I don't view this as work. When I wake up on a Saturday morning to record or a Sunday morning to record, the minute that my eyes open, I'm already in podcast host mode, if you will. And so everything I read or see is really through that lens. And so today, I'm excited to bring my topic. So today we're doing something a little bit different. I mean, we always do something different.
Are we doing something different? Because every single one is different.
They're all different when it's just you and I. We are each bringing a topic to the table today. And we don't know what each other's topic is. And I am so excited to share my topic. And I'm going to go last because I want you to be able to go first with your topic. And let's discuss your topic.
Funnily enough, it actually relates to everything that we've just been talking about.
Oh,
because how we've been saying about us creating the podcast. So we actually, just a little bit of a history lesson with the Play It Through podcast. This came about almost a year ago, the idea of it, because we were writing the book last year, 2024, and I think, I can't remember if it was November or December, the book, if you can actually see what Tish was pointing out. But we both have a copy of the book behind us, and while we were doing it, we actually came up with the idea we should start a podcast based around the book originally, wasn't it?
It was really about that. We wanted the writing in the book, the ideas in the book, the concepts in the book to not just stop at the book publishing date and not just be shared with people who are going to buy the book or people who are just teachers. There are so many things in that book that relate to all humans. And so I think that's really how the idea came about, right?
Yeah, we were thinking about it. We were deciding, do we want to do this? When do we want to start it? We were originally going to start it in the new year while we were also writing the book still.
Yes.
And then we were like, okay, well, let's get the first draft finished and then we'll do it. And we just kind of started pushing it further and further along because we realized the book was taking so much. And we were putting a lot of hours in every day. And when we say every day, it was evenings, weekday evenings for me, weekends, Zoom calls. It was like the pandemic all over again for us because we were using Zoom so much. But the book got finished, it got released, and we started the podcast literally a week before the book ended up getting released, which actually the book got brought forward
sooner.
So it got brought out earlier than originally scheduled, which meant it actually became the same week that we started the podcast.
Which was not, that was a divine intervention right there. It wasn't planned, absolutely.
Yeah, wasn't planned at all.
The best things in life aren't planned, Rick. The best things in life do not have a plan, which is what makes them fun.
They never do. So I think, it's been part of the reason why this has been so fun for us, why we've continued to do it. And my question really is around that. How many people do you think say they're going to do something or start something and never actually do it?
I would say the majority of people say that they are going to do something and then don't act upon it. When you say that, it's very common for people in passing to say, I've always wanted to do blank. I've always wanted
Yes.
to go visit blank. I once thought I'd be really good at that thing. And I think yes, I think that is really the majority of people. I hear it I used to hear it in students in the classroom that I would teach. I
Mm-hmm.
would hear it in their speaking, in their sentences, talking to their friends, talking to me, in their writing. It's kind of like the majority of the world feels stuck, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And
Is
I
is
don't
it feels
know.
stuck? Because I feel like when, as you just said, I've
Mhm.
people say I've always wanted to do that,
Mhm.
or I've always wanted to go there.
Mhm.
I've said that. I think
Mhm.
that's one of the biggest things is asking that question and saying that I have said those things. I have actually done that where I've said I'm going to do this or I'm going to start this
Mhm.
and I never materializes.
Because you said
Um,
my belief is that it's because you said, "Well, I'm going to." So when
mhm,
you are speaking in this phrasing of that I'm going to,
yeah,
it's as if you are sort of manifesting the fact that you're always in the process of getting there instead of
and never
actually
making the step.
being there. And
Yes.
so I really have always believed, and this was very much when I was younger too, but I've always believed to say what you want to do. Like there is so much power in what we say. There's
Mhm,
also so much power in what we write down. So I became very intentional about writing down the things I wanted to see in my life, but writing them down in my journal as if they
mm,
already happened.
That's the different thing. That's the you're essentially rewiring your thought process
Yes.
because
Yes.
you're saying, "I am already doing X. I have experienced this. How did you feel? I felt like this in this
Mhm. Mhm.
situation."
Mhm.
And these are things that haven't happened to you right now, but you're expressing what they felt like and feel like and
So
what you did to then see how it comes together.
it's interesting that you bring this up. We don't really go in this direction very often, and I
No.
don't really talk about this. There is someone out there, his name is Joe Dispenza. He has this theory that you can change your life by changing your thoughts and your
Mhm.
emotions. And by doing that, you're also changing your body. So if you really are doing the research into things like uh, research around the book, The Body Keeps Score, um,
Yes.
thinking, thinking in that past, if your body is thinking in the past and your brain is thinking in the past, or you're thinking you're never going to achieve it, you never are going to achieve it. I mean, there are quotes around that all over literature, right? And so what I think is interesting is there's this mind body connection about that. And this is a practice, we had Brian Seppi on the podcast previously, and I've gone to that episode a lot because he practices daily some of the things that
He
I also do, right?
Yeah, he dropped some bombs in that episode.
Absolutely. And I think that there is so much to say about where your mindset is, and if you are not really keeping your own mind in check, or don't have anybody to thought partner with you to do that, it's really easy to stay in the past. It's really easy to not see yourself going to those places, doing those things, writing the book, going on the trip, right? Like I always say, we think we have time. It is such a lie.
Yeah.
We think we have all the time in the world, and the truth of the matter is you don't. So the thing you want to do it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it needs to be fun. It goes back to the quote that you didn't even know I was going to share with you today because I just saw that this morning. But I
Mhm.
think it's about rewiring our brain. How do we rewire the thinking that we either grew up with, or the thinking and the mindset of the people around us who's very, we talked about it with Brian, the finite mindset. And I think that is where people are getting stuck because they are in that finite mindset. Like we can't
Mhm.
move past all of these labels and things that people put on us in order to get to the future that we see ourselves doing.
Exactly. And I think what you're saying there, rewiring the mindset, the
Mhm.
wording we're using. We've always talked about the feedback and reflection
Mm.
part where changing but to and.
Yeah.
And the one area you said where people are saying, oh, I've always wanted to do this.
Mm.
Okay, if we take that literally, are you saying that every single day you've been thinking about this one thing that you've wanted to do? Or are you just saying that because that's what people have always said around you, but you've
Mm.
never really thought about what you're saying?
Well,
Because
I
if
think
I
that's
was like,
it. I do think some
yeah,
people subconsciously do not hear what they're saying, and I don't know why I am like this. I talk about that a lot. I see patterns. I think so differently. I do not think linear. It's very
no,
evident
you
that I
don't.
don't think linear because you tell me to do, and we've talked about this. I mean, tell me to do a slide deck. I probably need to do a web brainstorm before we ever sit down to do the slide deck. Slide decks are very linear, and my brain does not think linear. I'm all
Mm-hmm.
like, everything connects like a web to me.
Yeah.
But I do think people are subconscious in the fact that they are not listening to what they are saying and
Mm-hmm.
then switching it up. And so I'm going to give you an example, actually, and it's an example that it's so funny. So I talk about Jason, his friends, a lot, and
Mm.
they are always. It's so funny. They know I do this podcast, and they are in high school. They're like 16, and so anytime I say I'm going to mention their name, they're like, "No, no, no, Miss Poncio, you don't have to do that. No, please do not." And I was like, "Well, I'm not going to say your name, like your whole name, but I might talk about things that, like." They were talking about 6'7", and we had this whole long discussion, rabbit hole about
I,
6'7".
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But when they were in 5th grade, Jace was playing football, and I love his friend group. They would all show up to support him, and they would sit on the sidelines with me and watch Jace play football. And so as we were sitting there, I would say things like, "Are you a world traveler?" And they would be like, "No." And I was like, "Do you mean not yet?" And they would be like, "No, I'm not a world traveler." And I was like, "Don't say that." And they were like, "Why?" And I was like, "Don't say that because you were essentially are speaking your future into existence. And if you say I'm not a world traveler, guess what? You never get to
Y-
do."
You're not going to be a world traveler.
So
And
it
yep.
became a joke essentially for a bit, but over time, over that football season, Jace's friend, his name is Owen, and I love Owen. And he, I would say, "Owen, are you a world traveler?" And he'd be like, "No." And so we would go through this like over and over and over for the whole season. And then it became a couple of years. And every time we would be in any common place together, I'd be driving them or dropping them off. I'd be like, "Who's a world traveler in the car?" And so eventually he started changing his answer.
Mm-hmm.
And so fun, but this last summer, he spent 3 months in Costa Rica with his family, got
Wow.
a passport, and I was just like, so now I say, "Oh, and are you a world traveler?" And he's like, "I am." And so it's so interesting. I use that as an example because I think even as young kids, and if you're a teacher or an administrator or a parent, if you really are in any realm of working with people in any capacity, if you will listen to the way people talk and tell a story about themselves or someone else, you will hear if they are limited in their thinking,
Mm-hmm.
if they believe that they can reach a goal or not. Like I always talk about it, and even we'll just say Rick will always often remind me of all the things I've done. Um, and
It's
it's
true.
like you need someone to stop sometimes and have you sit with the things that you've already achieved, because if you don't, you get really caught up in what's the next thing I'm achieving. And so if you're a people pleaser, if you maybe have ADHD, anything like that, you might relate to that. But what I think is really different, and I've said this a lot, people with ADHD, we have this level of risk taking that we can do. And
Mm-hmm.
for some people, it is like probably it leans into the negatives. But for me, I don't feel uncomfortable taking a risk. So
Yeah.
when we talked about doing the podcast, okay, I was comfortable with it. I was comfortable about talking in front of people. I knew how to do, like, all of my background and my history is in multimedia and creativity and videos and writing. And this really speaks to the majority of my strengths because it's different every week. I get to talk to people about their stories. I get to write. I get to sometimes do a spreadsheet or two. I get to debate with you on the topics we're talking about.
That's top of the list for you. That's definitely is. Do you think that though, by changing your vocabulary,
Yes.
changing the
You
wording
don't
that
even
you
have to
say in a actual
yes.
sentence,
Yes.
reduces the fear?
Yes, because again, when you're saying things to other people, like, it can be so simple. It can be, are you a world traveler, Rick? Not
Yes.
yet. But see, you are saying yes, and you are. But I mean, if
Yes.
I'm meeting someone or I'm talking with students or somebody who's not even thought about it, and I say, are you a world traveler? They're thinking about their past and their present. They're not thinking about what could be. And so if you
Yep.
just change the word to not yet or yes, then the more you repeat that, the more you are rewiring your brain and your subconscious to believe that that is your reality in that moment.
Yeah.
And so I've used that practice, not knowing what it was until I was older. And I remember doing it when I was in high school. I wanted the cell phone job. Like, the little I wanted to like be there and like program cell phones and talk to people. And I just remember walking into this interview. I had no experience. I didn't even know what I was doing, honestly. And I think that is
Yep.
also it. You have to have some audacious confidence and you have to just be okay with it. I heard somebody told me yesterday, like, people really don't actually know until they go do it. And that's the
Yeah.
truth, right? So I applied for the
Yeah.
job and I was like, this sounds cool, but I don't know. And then I just remember before that interview walking in saying, this is my job. I'm going to my job. I'm going to my job. This is my job. And I walked in and I had the interview, and no kidding, he hired me on the spot.
Yeah.
And then I had the job. And so I think that's just something that's wired in my brain, but it doesn't mean we've talked about it. 3 years ago, would you have expected to be a podcast host?
No. No, I've always been, I would like to be on a podcast. I'd like to be maybe a guest on a podcast. I always saw that as a possibility. I've always wanted to present, do
you remember when I
webinars
first
or
met you at
presentations.
Wakelet? And and we started, I was like, you should be on this Clubhouse room or you should be on this podcast. Did you
Yeah.
remember how resistant you were?
I was, because I'd never done it before, but there was always a part of me that was like, I want to go do this. I want to try it. So even just jumping on, I think the Clubhouse things really got me into playing around with it. Same with Twitter Spaces, now X Spaces. Really helped me to just learn how to articulate my thought process, because we've talked about how we process things that you're wanting to say, and for me, being dyslexic, that can be a challenge. But using Clubhouse, using X Spaces, because it's only audio, there's no visuals or anything like that. I can hone in on the one thing that I struggle the most at. So that allowed me to practice and really just, even with Clubhouse, I had no idea what I was going to say in the moment. I had no idea what was going to be discussed.
It's a huge fear for some people.
It is.
To be put on the spot, whether it is in a meeting at work or at the grocery store. I mean, we could keep leveling up. For me, I don't know why I can just think on the spot. And that's something that I was encouraging you to do. But I think more than anything, don't you think it's the ability to be comfortable in the uncomfortable?
Yes. That's the biggest thing. And you can only be there if you take that first step. It's always that first step. But I think as well, that goes very strongly with rewiring the wording you're saying. By saying, I've always wanted to be that. Okay, why do you still to this day say, I've always wanted to be that. Change it to, I want to do that.
Or I would change it to, in my journal, I would say, I am blank. I am an entrepreneur. I am an author, and then give more details. And the other thing I've up-leveled that to is how would that version of me act? How would that version of me dress? How would that version of me do the thing? We talked about that with Brian, I think,
Yeah,
but I
we did.
definitely approach it in that way.
But just to, I'm not saying that you're wrong in what you're saying.
Please debate me on this. This will be
I'm
great.
thinking about it for those that are like you taught me this. And one of the things that I was a little bit resistant to was, well, I'm not one of those things. So therefore, if I say it, I'm lying.
Ooh, but you're
So
not.
I'm not. But the thing is, that was my mentality. And I'm sure that there's somebody else that's in a very similar situation or of that kind of mindset. So rather than going from, oh, I've always wanted to do, to I am this, I'm thinking of it like a middle step where I go from I've always wanted to I want to then become
You
I
and I
am
debate
doing.
about this a lot because you have said to me certain things like, I want to blank. And I'm like, well, so by saying you want to, you're just reaffirming that you don't have it. Right.
I am. But
so
saying I've always wanted it, to
Mhm.
me, just sounds like,
Well, it's further
well, you're
from the
just
goal.
constantly, it's further. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
It's further from the goal. So therefore, I'm trying to bring myself closer to it.
So I think that's the thing. How do you retrain your brain and body to associate the feelings, the new feelings, to the new future, and what are the words that you're saying to yourself? I believe in this a lot. The words
Yes.
that we say to ourselves are the most important words we will say in our
100%.
entire life.
100%. Yeah, completely agree with you. And that's why I say it's too easy for us to
Well, we could have
go all
easily
in, to go in all
all in.
100% into everything.
Sure.
But there's a higher probability that you'll fall out of it. If you change just a little bit, make that small step, you will start to keep more of a consistent process, like we've done with the podcast. We started off not with we want to hit X number of episodes, we want to hit X number of views and followers and all this.
You didn't give me a KPI list, did you?
We had no goal. The only
goal was to show up. That was
it was
the
to show
goal.
up. We did have one goal in mind though, which was on average podcasts die before 7 episodes or on 7 episodes, and we were like, okay, let's aim for 10 at least. Let's aim for 10 and see how we sit with it. But we had to
show up, and we had to be uncomfortable in what we didn't know, and that's what I want to reiterate. In order to hit goals or your dream job or whatever trip you want, you have to show up and be prepared to just sit in that uncomfortableness of what you do not know.
Yes.
And I think that is real bravery, actually. Being able to sit with the unfamiliar and embrace it.
Yes, I agree. I agree
Well,
with you.
I'm glad you do. No, I'm just kidding. Because we're moving into another topic that you might not agree with.
I was going to say let's go into your topic now, because I think we've talked about mine for not
ages.
30 minutes, but near enough.
Okay.
And yours deserves just as much time.
So Virginia Woolf said, all extremes are dangerous. It is best to keep in the middle of the road in common ruts, however muddy. Which I think is interesting. And I want you to sit with that for a second. All extremes are dangerous. And it's best to keep middle of the road. The right way is usually in between two extremes. So I want you to think about that for a second. If you're listening or watching, you're just going to sit with that quote. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you something. And I'm not going to tell you who posted this or who said this. And then we're going to talk about some of the comments around it and the ideas around it. Okay? So I'm going to read you this quote, and I'm going to get your initial response, Rick. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just making a quick note on what you said because I'm already ready for like questions on that one. But you continue.
He's so excited about this. I can tell. Okay. It's time to remove laptops from classrooms. 24 experiments. Students learn more and get better grades after taking notes by hand than typing. It's not just because they're less distracted, but writing enables deeper processing and more images. The pen is mightier than the keyboard. Now, I'm going to give you the same prompt I gave everybody else. No. So many people use technology to accommodate for daily life, including students. We need to stop making drastic decisions either way, believing it's going to quote unquote fix anything. Tell me I'm wrong in your comments. So I'm ready for you to tell me if that's right. That's the right way to approach the things, or like, where do you sit with this quote? I could see it all over your face. If you're not watching and you're listening, Rick's immediate facial expression and his body movements told me when I get to the part that said people get better grades after taking notes by hand than typing, his entire presence
if we
was disturbed.
weren't allowing certain language to be used in this podcast, which we are not, I would have gone through every single
Okay, so let's unpack this for a
possible.
second. Do you agree or disagree with this quote?
With the quote or your comment?
The quote, the original
quote itself. I 1,000,000% disagree with that quote. It is a load of rubbish if you believe that you are, I don't care who's actually written it.
Yeah.
You are self-centered, naive, and you need to get your head out your backside if you think that only writing gets you better grades, because that is complete. I am an example where that does not happen.
Yep.
So, yes, I will fight for that.
I knew that you would, and that is actually...
That's got me heated.
Oh,
this is the first time I've been this heated on.
I know, and I'm glad that you are. And I'm going to tell you who said the quote, but I'm not going to tell you who said the quote yet. And if you're listening, you're going to probably know who the quote is from, but I don't want to reveal that yet. I'm going to give you some responses to my personal Facebook post, okay? So one comment says, I agree. Doesn't have to be all or nothing. I think this argument comes from the fact that students might be doing more consuming than creating. We've talked about that on the podcast before.
I agree with that.
There has to be a healthy balance, and I think of ways that technology can remove barriers for students. Totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else commented. Now, what you should know is these comments, the majority of them are coming from teachers, okay? One comment after that says, I still take notes by hand. Another one says, I personally learn better with pen and paper, taking notes. However, students learn best on interactive boards that keep their interest. Another comment says, it's such a narrow view of what students might use devices for. Next, it says, can we say blended approach? I hate the all or nothing mindset. My life is a healthy mix of both. I also know what works for me in certain situations, and a good teacher will know what works for their individual students. Next comment, we can't think about how we learned. We need to think about how our current students learn. A blended approach is great. Students to learn pen, paper skills and the digital skills necessary to evolve in the current learning landscape. Someone else says, I'm a mix. Sometimes I prefer a keyboard, sometimes the whiteboard. In my mind, when I'm trying to, and he's a programmer, so in my mind, when I'm trying to work out an equation or need to brainstorm, I think more clearly when it's written out. Next comment, these 24 experiments? Why? Where? How? I don't know. 2/3 of all statistics are made up on the spot. I'm going to need more from this.
Yep.
Next comment.
Can
Oh,
I just interrupt
we're
you
not
a
even to the
bit?
good ones, but okay.
I just want to, because I just want to back these comments up because
Well, do that
here's
in a second because I got more. I
I'm
have
itching
more.
to
I
say
know you
I'm
are.
really itching with what everybody's said so far is so right, and I just want to explain
Well, I'm
how
gonna
I
let you. I'm gonna let
learn.
you. I'm gonna
So
let
what?
you.
Here's the one thing. I type faster than I write.
Yes.
However, if I'm given something digitally,
Mhm.
I can learn it better
Mhm.
by handwriting what is displayed on the screen.
Yep.
And it allows me to
Yep.
consume that better than reading it and trying to
Yes.
consume it.
Yes.
So that is where handwriting and keyboard
Mm,
align perfectly as a mix
I
rather
agree.
than one or the other.
Okay,
So
we're gonna keep
everybody's saying
going.
that mixture, like, yes.
You agree. Oh, I knew you would.
This first person's really got me heated.
Uh, this isn't wrong. It's just incomplete. Digital ink has the same effective size as traditional ink in the research, with many more benefits. And this is why I've been an advocate of Surface for the last decade. A response to that comment says, this part, he's not wrong. It's just incomplete, in quotes. That's too much all or nothing thinking. It's an ban it or block it or use it all the time. Response to that, I really enjoy this because I really enjoy this other person because they tend to go in the same direction. I don't think that it's healthy to do all or nothing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is another quote from the from the poster that said 24 experiments. Why, where, how?
Mm-hmm.
So she's come back and she's like, I could also read this like, it's time to keep our students from preparing for college and career because some students do better without tech and teachers are tired of policing devices. We got to do better than this. Things need to change, but this isn't it. Last comment on my post here. I think every person learns different. I was the type that felt like I retained information if I wrote and rewrote my notes. As an adult learner, I like listening and participating, but taking notes from readings. And once available, I use digital ink. However, I have friends who never needed to take notes. Learning by doing is what works best for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my post. Now, let me just take you over to LinkedIn because this same quote ended up on LinkedIn. So hold on one second. Give me just a minute. Just a minute. It's so funny because I saw these both about 7:30 a.m. today. Okay. So this one says, so same quote. I'll reread you the quote so you'll get rehyped. It's time to remove laptops from classrooms. 24 experiments. Students learn more and get better grades after taking notes by hand than typing. It's not just because they're less distracted. Writing enables deeper processing and more images. This is where it gets me. The pen is mightier than the keyboard. Now, I am a former English language arts teacher. I am an author. I am a nerd about journaling morning pages every day and sometimes evening pages every night. I write a lot. But when we are saying the pen is mightier than the keyboard, I know personally that that is excluding accommodations from a lot of people. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's the part that really rubs me the wrong way. So this post was shared, this quote was shared by someone completely different. And it says, I'm sure you'll think again about this post. Removing laptops from specific tasks in the classroom, maybe, but continue to use them to help level the playing field in other areas. And this has 11 comments, lots of sentiments about, and actually somebody brought up this name again. It feels like someone said, I'm making a lot of money by making unsupportive generalizations that play to people's fear. So now we have some discussion around the poster, who I'll tell you in just a second. And then some other people who commented on my post have commented on this one. Here's a new comment. Learning when to use digital tools and when to use analog tools is a skill. We need both. I agree. We use the pen quite a bit here as well as the iPad. The iPad doesn't disable, it enables all of our students. Antiquated and myopic thinking, if he's thinking high school, I could make a case for very early elementary to have some limited access. I agree with this, but I believe this quote is just trying to bait people with BS.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Because you said it was 24 experiments, right?
Yeah, and then let me just read you this because we've talked about SAMR on this podcast. So SAMR is an approach to technology integration. It is not research based, but a lot of schools use this. It's substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. So you use that when you're putting technology into classrooms, right? So that's what I did for 13 years. This comment says, as a longtime advocate of SAMR, I still disagree with this. Yes, for substitution and augmentation, the pen might be mightier, but drift up into the modification and redefinition. And there are things that we can do in the critical thinking and creativity realms with tech that are unattainable without it. So really good comment there. And then the last comment on this post is, I had a debate about this yesterday on another social platform. We have to have both. You can't remove laptops from classrooms when technology is a part of life. Like it or
Yeah.
not, removing it completely is a huge disservice to our students. Now, I know that you still feel strongly about it. And so this person that posted it is someone that I generally enjoyed following, and for the most part agreed with a lot of things. This person is a professor at a university in Pennsylvania, has a bachelor's of arts from Harvard and a master's and PhD from University of Michigan in psychology, has authored multiple best-selling books, and has research. Google Scholar lists tens of thousands of citations for this person's work on motivation, work motivation, job design, and pro-social proactive behaviors, and has TED Talks and podcasts and is a consultant for major organizations. A lot of people took his ideas very to heart and thought they were very credible.
And this person made a statement based on 24 experiments.
And it's interesting because when I did a white paper on this person, because I did that this morning, that's what I do for fun on a Saturday morning while I'm drinking my hot cocoa with health benefits. We can talk about that later. But limits and areas of caution here, because he operates in a public sphere, some of his content is going to lead towards popular psychology, which means the nuance, boundary conditions, and contradictory evidence. He's criticized for being on forums and really kind of this over optimism risk. What I think here is it's really interesting, because I think as I was reading through these comments after I saw the post and after I posted my own post asking for people to argue with me, it's just really interesting because he's being influenced probably by someone, and he's putting it out there and probably thought everybody would agree. And I went to the original post and I looked at it. And those comments did not agree, and actually said something like, the dysgraphia students will highly disagree. Your dyslexic students are going to highly disagree. Your ADHD students and adults are not going to agree with this. That is not how they are becoming successful. And so who posted this? It was none other than Adam Grant. If you follow Adam Grant on any social media, which you've probably seen his work, his quotes, you've probably seen him on a TikTok or two. I have. I couldn't believe that he took this extreme stance on laptops. And yeah, where are the experiments? Who were those students? What grade were they in? What accommodations did they need? What type of learner are there? I just don't think that we can ever say all or nothing. I don't think it is healthy for anybody to say something like the pen is mightier than the keyboard. I just showed you my beautiful fountain pen and told you how much I love it. But it doesn't mean that because I love that, I'm not going to also need the support of an iPad or a laptop or ChatGPT. And we are doing everyone a disservice if we take that stance.
Here's a quick question. How this relate to someone that's using an Apple Pencil with an iPad? Does that mean that they're using a pen, but they're using a technology? They're not using ink and paper. They're using technology, but they're using handwriting.
But that's what we're saying, and that the response. This is overwhelming on what you said, and
I'm honestly I've never heard of this guy, but
you haven't.
No, I haven't. But I'm very disappointed that someone with a I'm assuming a Harvard degree.
Yeah.
And he is a popular science author, professor at Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, and he has stated that.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm just going to share it. Matt Miller. Love Matt Miller. He says it's such a narrow view of what students might use devices for. Adam Grant is usually great, but this is the type of view you'd expect from higher ed. Completely agree with that. I think because of his experience in higher ed, I think this is where this is coming from. The other thought was...
I don't even agree in higher ed that should be the case.
But you think about it, in higher ed, we're going to have some podcasts... guests talk about this, but in higher ed, it's all about the lecture. It's all about the lecture.
Who didn't work in lectures? Me, because I had to have a voice recorder so that they could actually go back and listen to it. It does not work. So if people want to say that it works, it's for higher ed or it's for kindergarten or whatever, no, it is not.
Yeah.
Everything that we do from day one has to follow through all the way through to their career. End of. You have to accommodate for all. There is not one size fits all. I'm really heated on this point.
I'm glad you are.
I am so I've had to deal with this all my life.
I know you have, and so many other
fitting
people
into everything else.
Listen,
and it is nonsense. Sorry, I'm off my high horse now.
So many people agree with you, Rick, and this is why we do a pre-call every Saturday before our episode, and I was really heated, and Rick was like, "Where's your energy today? I can sense something."
I can understand why it was.
I was just like, you know what? Tell me I'm wrong. Stop doing an all or nothing approach. And I think that there is a lot of mindset out there right now in all or nothing. And it goes back to what I said before I showed you this about extremes. We cannot go all or nothing. The virtue, the wisdom, the sweet spot, if you will, that's going to be in between the two extremes. And you know what being in between the two extremes will do for you? It allows you some room and permission to change your stance if you need to.
True.
Thanks for joining us for the Play Ed 3 podcast. We hope that you will continue listening. Follow us on all social medias at the Play Ed 3 podcast. I'm your host, Tisha Poncio. I'm with the very
I need to go and have a bath and put Enya on just to calm me down right now. I mean, you've got me so riled up and just ending it now.
Yes, we are ending it. Thank you so much, Rick, for co-hosting this episode with me. And we want to continue. We want to continue this conversation in the comments. So if you agree with Adam Grant, let's hear it. You tell us why we're wrong. If you agree with Rick's stance, tell us what you agree with. Tell us your own struggles.
I am up for conversations on these so much.
Rick's going to put his number down below. So
no, I'm not putting my phone number down below. But if you do want to have a conversation about this, I am, and you either agree or disagree, come join us.
If you are Adam Grant, here it is. If you are Adam Grant and you want to get on this podcast and you want to debate a bunch of teachers about this, we would love to have you.
Up for
I will
totally
moderate this conversation. Would be happy to. Adam Grant, I think it's a huge miss on your part.
It is.
And I say that gracefully. So we'll see you again for the Play It Through podcast. Bye, everyone.
Bye.